So we're So Dr. Brown, we are ready for you to begin your presentation. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm working on it.
Okay.
Well, let's see here.
There you go.
Let's see here.
Great.
Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, this is just an introduction slide. This is a story about a refugee project that was started back in 2015 and it involves refugees from Burma that are called the Karens. It's a sect in Burma. And we now call it the farm Okie Grove Karen Community Farm. This Okie Grove has been my family for generations, and this project is especially important to me because what we have is a group of formerly enslaved refugees from Burma learned to farm in North Carolina on land that was historically farmed by slaves. So we go from when it began slave farming to now having people that have been slaves, but now are back in a country that gives them many opportunities. Next, I want to talk about Meet the Farmers. As I said, these are an ethnic group from Burma, Myanmar. They all that are here have fled Burma due to civil strife, persecution, and that's a polite word for what they encountered. They all escaped the refugee camps along the western border of Thailand. And life in the refugees camps was really harsh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You disappeared for a second.
Okay, I'm not sure where I was when I disappeared. Anyway, the refugees we're talking about came to the United States beginning in 2004 after living in refugee camps for up to 20 years or more. And they were brought here by the United Nations High Commission for Refugees with the aid from the Lutheran Family Services. Okay, Meet the Farmer. This is a Burmese or Karen farmer named Tusal Yaw. Tusal is the lead farmer. He's the one that's been very active in promoting this whole program and working with us. He's the assistant farm manager because he is the lead person, and he's our primary interpreter. His wife is Key Laura, and she is also involved in the farm and also can help in interpretation. As it indicates in the wording there, he was in Burma lived there until 1984. He and his brothers and sisters were captured and put in jail in Burma by the Burmese army from 1982 to 84. His father and brother escaped being captured, and his father was a general in the Karen Army he was eventually caught by the Burmese army and they never saw him again. Tucson lived in the refugee camp for almost 20 years, married his wife there, and came to the States in 2004. He works full-time in Henderson in a warehouse, as do many of the Karen farmers that we deal with. And they all maintain jobs of some sort, or most of them do, because they need health care. And even if they were making $40,000, $50,000 a year, they probably would keep their jobs because of the health care benefits. Next person I want to introduce you to is Tupal Lowe. Tupal has a husband named Polo, and she also spent many years in a refugee camp in Burma on the Thai border. She said that her home was burned 3 times in the refugee camp. She worked in a hospital, and they burned the hospital once, and they were treated very harshly. So she moved to the States in 2008. She also worked in Henderson until recently, and then she took a job at Amazon. And then her husband had a stroke about last November, and that she now is not working, and she's farming most of the time when she has time. And Paul Singh is our youngest farmer. She grows primarily flowers. She came to the States when she was 15. She speaks fluent English and is also one of our interpreters. Her husband, Daniel, owns a sushi restaurant in Apex. And her mom, father, and grandmother, and mom's sisters and aunts are still in Burma. She also has an AmeriCorps position now that's based with Transplant Tradition, which is a similar Karen refugee farm in Chapel Hill that's been there 10 years and been very successful. And we have a working relationship with them. This is my farm, Okie Grove. Thomas Price came to Wake County in the late 1700s, bought 353 acres for 400 pounds. When he died in 1830, his plantation over 4,000 acres, 5 grist mills, and plantation home. Today, the farm has dwindled down in size to 118 acres plus the original plantation home. And my wife and I now own it, and I'm 5th generation owner. The land has never been out of the family. And here's how it all began. In 2015, 2 extension faculty members from NC State approached a woman named Kay Coleman, who was the Interface Food Shuttle Farm manager at that time. Interface Food Shuttle Farm in Raleigh on Tryon Road. And they wanted to find an acre or two where a group of refugee farmers from Burma could grow food for their families. And Kay loved that, and she helped them get started in a 1 acre field there. And they were very successful, had beautiful vegetables. But in 2017, the Interface Food Shuttle Farm had to move because of the developer that owned the land wanted to develop it. And when they moved, they said there was no room for the Karen farmers. I had almost a 3 acre field at my farm that had not been used for 5 or 6 years. I ran out some of my open land to a local farmer who grows tobacco and soybeans. And then, so when they agreed to come, they started making the move, and they started farming in the late spring of 2019. Now, before I go further, I want to tell you that these people are not operating by themselves. We have a farm management team that meets virtually every week. And these are the members of the team currently. And Kay Coleman now is retired from the farm and garden manager at Interface Food Shuttle Farm, has moved to Burnsville, North Carolina, and primarily interacts with us virtually. She does come down every once in a while because she has family still in this area. Tia Evans works with Carolina Common Enterprise. Why that? Well, this is a nonprofit group, but we have not gone through and been officially designated as a nonprofit. So we use Carolina Common Enterprise as a place where we keep our money, and when we write grants, we have them as part of the grant, or as the place for the home of the grant, I guess you'd say. And so Tia Evans is assistant director. She's getting ready to leave them, but she'll continue working with us. Gary Bullen is retired from NC State. He's a marketing specialist. Myself, Lance Perriman. Now here's a kind of someone that Suzanne will know, but is not the typical person that you'd have on this team. He's a retired dean of the veterinary college in Colorado State. We have Lance because he has extensive experience in writing grants. Before he went into administration, he was a very successful researcher and wrote multiple grants for U.S. Department of Agriculture and NIH, and very successful. And as dean at Colorado State, he raised millions of dollars for that institution. So he's come on and he's done on a steep learning curve about the farm, but he's also the person that's helping us in writing grants. And he's very, very helpful in that respect. And then we have two of the caring farmers on the team too. Okay, so we got this land. Well, wait a minute. Okay, here's where we started. This is in the fall of 2018. We see a field out here. We've already dished that and put in a cover crop, but there's nothing out there, just open land. First thing we did is put up a deer fence. And this deer fence is 3 strands of rope wire with electrical charger. There are deer out there, so we had to keep those out. This shed that's down at the lower right is a shed that was built by a church group while the Karens were farming in Raleigh. And when they moved out to Okie Grove, the church group moved the shed out there. So we have that. Well, since we started in this project in about 2017, when we made the decision and we started planning, the thing that we knew we had to do was get the infrastructure put in. What did we need? We needed a greenhouse, we needed a well, irrigation well, and a structure called a high tunnel. And I'll tell you about that later. But okay, so we got a grant from NC State Extension Service grant and for a greenhouse. And on your left, or my left, you can see after we put up the steel structure, the framework, the volunteers that were doing the work were sitting around and on top of the ladder, and Kay Coleman sitting at the bottom. And then on the right is the greenhouse after we built it. Now, Kay and I and some others built this greenhouse, and I had never built a greenhouse. And I'll tell you, it was a very challenging project, but we got it done. Okay, we talked about needing make sure, yeah. We needed what we call a high tunnel or hoop house. Now, what's the difference between a high tunnel and a hoop house? A high tunnel or hoop house and a greenhouse. A greenhouse has a ventilation fan, big ventilation fan, and has heat so that you can keep it cool in the summer and keep it above freezing in the winter. Everything that's in a greenhouse is placed on stands that are built and raised above the gravel floor. In contrast, a high tunnel, which we see over on our right, is a structure in which you have to plant everything in the ground, and there's no ventilation fan and there's no heat. You can raise the ends. We have the end raised here to prevent wind damage now while we're building it. And you can see on the side that where you see plastic all the way down, that can roll up in the summer. So we can open it up in the summer and we can close it down in the winter. This structure allows farmers, sustainable farmers, to extend the growing season in the fall and start growing things earlier in the spring than you can just in the open. That's a very important part of a sustainable farm. And then came the well. Well, this is where we asked, on your left there, you can see where we wanted the well. And when we would, before we put the well in, we had hoses. I have one spigot at my house that was functional. We had a hose coming from it to a garden that my sister and I have. And from that connection, we took another long hose out to where the Karens were farming, and they had multiple hoses coming off that for irrigation. That's not a way to irrigate or to get water that's going to be successful for a true sustainable farm. So we got a grant from North Carolina Department of Agriculture, RAP grant. They provide 80% cost of the well, and we have to provide the other 20%. And this shows the pump house where we put in the well. This was an interesting experience. I have never been involved in putting in a well. So we hired Graded Well Pump in Nightdale. They came out, set up their rig at 66 feet. They hit water 3 gallons a minute. That's not very much water for what we needed. They kept drilling. They went down to 260 feet, no more water. So finally they said, well, we'll have to make that work. We'll put the pump at the bottom of the 260 feet. You'll have 300 gallons in the that you can reservoir there. So that worked for about 2 months. And then one day Tucson came to me and said, I'm having trouble getting water. He said, I cut on the spigot, water comes out for about 30 seconds and that's it. Call the well people back. One thing led to another. The well had, around where the water was coming in, the well had collapsed into the casing, had knocked the pump out of function. To get the pump out, they had to set up the whole irrigation, the well digging apparatus again. So they said, we're going to keep digging. So they dug another 140 feet and hit 50 gallons a minute. And so that's great, all the water we need. And you can see out in the field at 4 corners, we have spigots like you see at the bottom right. And so we have plenty of water for the farm now. Now that shows 3 grants that we've obtained. These are not sizable grants, but they certainly have helped us provide for the infrastructure. Just recently, we, in conjunction with Transplanting Traditions in Chapel Hill, have been awarded a sizable USDA grant that's focused on marketing. We own it about 20 to 25% part of that grant. So the Transplanting Traditions is the one overseeing the grant, but we'll get some benefits out of it. We have another grant from USDA, a COVID grant. Now USDA has a lot of COVID money they haven't spent. So they put out a request for grant proposals for $20,000 each, and they said they're going to give out over 2,000 of them. So we're hopeful we're going to get this grant. We should know soon. the first, going back now to summer of 2019, this is the way the garden looked then. And you see all the plants, and there's on the left side in the background, you can see the small trailers that's there. And the Karens are interested in more than just growing food and selling it. They're interested in helping preserve some of that culture. And so one of the things they want to do is share their food with us. So we had a fundraiser in the summer of 2019 that turned out to be very successful. All the food was grown on the farm, Asian food, most of it. All the food was cooked by the Karen people. And in the bottom right, you can see around a lady cooking on a little fire there. In the center of those three people that are kneeling down, there's Kay Coleman, and to her left, our right, is Tupac. The gentleman in the upper right here owns a restaurant in Raleigh, and he came out and cooked. And one of the things that they want to do is provide a place for some of the youth and to get them involved in it too. So these young guys were helping us with the that meal that we were providing. But this also shows, this is CPAC Tackle Field. I think that's the way, I'm not sure if that's proper pronunciation, but that's the way I said it. A volleyball-like net, but much lower than a volleyball net. And they have a ball that's round, smaller than a soccer ball, larger than a softball. And it's more the texture of a soccer ball. And they play by kicking. They do not use their hands, do not use their heads. They kick the ball. And I've watched them play out, and it's very interesting. Some of these young guys are pretty skilled at doing that. We have since put up a volleyball net next to them. So we're planning a place where the Karen community, young people can come together and have activities together too. We have planned or wanted to have additional fundraiser activities out there with providing Karen food, but with COVID, we haven't been able to do that. This shows some of the vegetables that they grow out there. You can see here's some gourds. They love to grow gourds, especially Tupac. Tupac's a lady, older woman, and she loves to grow gourds. These are called yard lung beans. Each bean is about, maybe not a yard, but 24 inches long. And this is some of the things they grow, but certainly not a complete list of everything they grow. They grow a type of rice that's not, that they have grown in Burma, but it's not the type of rice you have to keep underwater or plant underwater. It's more, you plant it and it grows up more like conventional vegetables. Pea eggplant I never heard of, but it turns out the little small fruit that comes in these plants, you can sell it for $5 a pound if you got plenty of it. They have more gourds. I bet they had 10, 15 different varieties out there this year. Thai hot peppers are very popular with the Asian community. And Tucson has actually sold these to people in up in New Jersey and in Michigan. And we often have members of the Hispanic community stopping by wanting to buy lemongrass from us. So these are Asian vegetables we're growing. We'll be growing some conventional vegetables, but we're going to try to focus on here's the hot peppers that grow. And not every red hot pepper is super hot, but some of them are just, you take a bite and you'll get it out of your mouth quick. Gourds, all sizes, some long like this, but they have smaller gourds and big gourds. This past fall, we had a fried gourd dinner provided by the Karen. This is the farm team. It was delicious. I never thought I'd say gourds, but the way they fix them is very tasty. All right, this is the current farm. You can see where we had row crops, different crops in that's been taken out. This is an area that's been farmed that has a cover crop of rye on it. You can see the trellises in the background there are very much more extensive than in the past. On the right, you can see the flower undercover that's been grown by Coolbot. And you can see inside the greenhouse, they have moved in a lot of vegetables that are cold sensitive and are keeping them in there. Here's some of this pea eggplant I was talking about, very cold sensitive. And they're trying to preserve some so that they get started earlier in the spring with that. So that's an overview of the farm and what we how we got there and what we're doing. This is the challenges that we face. Our greatest challenge is to obtain funding for part-time or full-time farm manager. And when we first started, we applied for a grant from the Refugee Agricultural Partnership Program. We call it a RAP grant. We did get funded first time we applied for it. And I can see why when I look back at some of the criticism. It really was put together very quickly and did not, we didn't carefully think of everything. But we still got a highest funding score. And the suggestion was if we resubmitted it the following year, we would very likely get it funded. This would have provided the farm manager that we needed. Well, unfortunately, COVID came along and we all know what that's done. But they just advertised that they're going to release the application for new grants in March of this year. The next grant is a USDA grant that we are trying to, that Dr. Perriman is going to probably prepare our application for. That is also a sizable grant. So if we could get one of these two grants, we would have a very good chance of getting a farm manager. The problem without a full-time farm manager is that they need somebody there at least half time to work with them on a one-on-one basis. That a lot of times about spacing the plants, spacing the rows, irrigation, different insects problems, how you deal with that, fertilizing. These are things that are good. A person that has a good background in sustainable farming can help the Karens with. But the Karens, you can't pick up a book and read like we would and get it. They need to be shown, and have to be shown sometimes multiple times before they really catch on. So we're very hopeful we can get funding for that. We've made contact with the Z. Smith Reynolds Foundation, and they've expressed some interest in our project, and we're trying to work with them and have them come out and look at the farm, and hopefully we'll might be able to get some money from them. We've applied for other grants. Jane found Ammons Foundation grant we applied for, didn't get. We have worked with Triangle Community Foundation, but have not been able to find anybody there. Our other challenge, we need additional farmers. We think we may have one farmer, new farmer join us, but we'd like to have 5 or 6 farmers working out there with their families and whatnot. It's my opinion that if the current farmers start becoming more successful at producing their crops, that we will get more farmers coming out of the woodwork, so to speak. The other challenge is language. The older people, many of them do not speak English or read English, and a lot of them don't even read Burmese. They only speak Burmese, and it's very hard to work with them on a one-on-one basis without an interpreter around. So far, the 3 farmers we have, that's not a major problem. But if we bring in somebody that doesn't, we have one farmer out there that sort of does his own thing. And he doesn't speak English, and he doesn't really want to become part of the team group that's other farmers out there. And it's hard to communicate with him to get him into working with you. And we'd like to have more young people working too. I think I missed a slide. I'd like to slip back. Yeah, I don't know if I don't think I mentioned the Coolbot. Another grant we got is for a Coolbot refrigeration unit. When you harvest vegetables, you have to take them and wash them and drain them and get them dried out. And then, let's say you're not going to sell vegetables or take them to market till the next day or 2 days away. You have to have them in a refrigerated environment. And we have purchased through this grant, a 8-foot by 8-foot by 8-foot walk-in cooler. It's called a Coolbot because the refrigeration regulator unit in that, which is the most expensive part of it, is called a Coolbot. The gray shed that we started with on the left, which is an 8-foot by 16-foot, the height is not high enough to accommodate the shed. I mean, the refrigeration unit. So we've added on to the shed, and we have an area up front now that's 12 by 16, and the ceiling height is over 8 feet. And we're going to put the shed in there, the refrigeration unit in there, and we'll hope to have this project done by the spring. Okay, go back to where I was. And that's really the end of the presentation. I would encourage any that want to learn more to look at the webpage, which is oakgrove-caringcommunityfarm.org. And if you are so inclined to donate, you can do that to the webpage. But I've enjoyed sharing this with you. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them and go from there.
Dr. Brown, there was one question, and I had the same question. Thanks for asking it, Teresa. Can you give us the name of the gentleman's restaurant in Raleigh?
I can't.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well, perhaps
I don't even know. There's a sushi restaurant in Apex at Creek Falls.
Apex. I think what you did say Apex in.
And actually, there's an article in a Triangle Business Journal not too long ago. Maybe it has been a while now, but this was highlighted as one of the up and coming new restaurants in the area. And I could find out and tell Suzanne, but
that would be great if in your comings and goings with the farm, if you talk to someone and they know the name of the Apex restaurant, or if there's one in Raleigh either, that we would love to have it. And so if you'll share that with Suzanne, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Will do.
Mary, if I may, I had just a couple of questions for Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown, thank you for your presentation. I was curious about a couple of things. The first is, how big is the community there that you're engaging? You mentioned you're interested in having additional farmers. So I was just kind of wondering, like, how big is the community there that may be a part of this? And my second question is, you mentioned a lot of the grant funding that you've been applying for and have been successful in receiving. I was wondering if there was an opportunity for earned revenue through selling the produce, and if that's part of the kind of long-term funding plan.
Well, the earned revenue at this time and for the foreseeable future, they will keep that. But they have set up an account, and currently they have a certain amount they have to contribute every month And they currently have to pay for the electricity for the greenhouse. Now, after the greenhouse was completed, I went for 6 months and paid for it myself, but they have taken that over. There's a small amount of lease. It's they pay $240 a year for leasing the property, but in the long run, it's not like a traditional farm where as you start you don't make money until the 5th year because you have to plow it all back into it, and that's where this differs. And actually, I mentioned Transplanting Traditions in Chapel Hill. They have gotten to the point they generate substantial revenue, but most of it still goes to the farmers. And they have, like us, they have to give back a certain amount, but it's more than we'll get. The farmers here give it back, but most of the infrastructure and supplies and whatnot, we go out to grants to provide that.
Thank you.
And what was your first question?
And the first question was sort of how big is the community?
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Refugees, yeah.
In the United States, the biggest population of Karen refugees is in Minneapolis. But North Carolina is one of the, in the Triangle area is one of the more substantial population. And there are probably close to 3,000 Karens in this area.
Wow. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
And I didn't mention, I don't know if you know where Turnip Seed Road is, any of you, but it's just about 6 miles south of the farm, about 6 miles south of Nightdale. It's at the intersection of, you go down Smithville Road and turn down Turnip Seed, and there's another road called Major Slade, and that's where the farm's located. So, and the people of Nightdale have been very supportive. The public manager, public utility, town manager, I guess, he provided leaves for 2 years for us out there. So we've had good support from Nightdale too.
Mhm.
Dr. Brown, we have a couple of other questions. Ed has asked, have you tried partnering with the North Carolina Agricultural Extension regarding, I guess, funds? And what is the size of your financial challenge?
Well, the first grant we got to put in the greenhouse came from an extension service grant. So that was and there were 3 or 4 extension faculty that were very involved when we first started this program. But they're tenure track faculty and they can't spend a substantial amount of time working on the program forever. So we have good contacts with them and we've used their resources as much as possible. We are looking to partner with NC State. There are certain, we actually looking to partner with both NC State and North Carolina A&T. North Carolina A&T, they have a member of the faculty up there who's an expert at growing Asian vegetables, and he's been down and we're talking about how we can work together. So we're looking for opportunities to partner with both NC State and North Carolina A&T. And I might say that additionally, my farm is probably less than a mile from the Williamson Preserve that Triangle Land Conservancy has been developing. And we just had a meeting this week, and we're going to explore trying to work closer together because, of course, they are involved in conservation of farmland. I'm very much involved in the conservation of my farm. In fact, I'm going through an application to put a conservation easement on the entire farm right now. And as you all know, if you drive around eastern Wake County, especially in areas where we are, it is booming. There's housing projects going up in farm fields faster than you can count. So we think that if we work together, we can have our goals can be met mutually beneficially.
So what is your the size of your financial challenge? Can you give us a dollar amount?
It would take for half-time farm manager, it would be about $30,000 a year. And full-time, that's with benefits and everything else.
Right.
So in that range.
Okay. And then Suzanne asked, do they sell at the state farmers market? Do they sell their vegetables and flowers?
We have been exploring very much. One of the members of our farm team is a member named Gary Bullen, and Gary is very involved in marketing. And we have been talking to different groups about marketing. We have not. One of the challenges in having the Karens go to a farmer's market, there has to be at least one of them that speaks English.
Yeah.
And if you only have two or three of them that speak, or two that speak passable English, and Saul, who's the lead farmer, is a Seventh-day Adventist. So his church is on Saturday.
Huh.
And the markets don't work very well on Sunday. But that's not the main reason, because we're not ready. I mentioned the Coolbot refrigeration unit. Before you can sell them on a farmer's market, you have to meet good agricultural practices and be certified as a good agricultural practice provider. That means you have facilities to clean your vegetables when you collect them and store them, refrigeration, before you sell them. And we're not at that point yet. But that's where we're going. That's what we want to do, but we're not there yet.
Great. And Chris, I believe you had your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Talmage, I just want to add that at the Durham Farmers Market in downtown Durham, we do have a group of Asian farmers. I'm not sure where they come from, but they could be from Chapel Hill. Language barrier is a real problem, but they managed to say YouTube. When you buy everything, they just say YouTube. So you could go to the YouTube and figure out what you have, but they have the bitter melons, and all of the gourd you were talking about, hot peppers, and the long beans, which really are entertaining for children down there. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you so much for all your work.
It may be part of the transplantation community, but they have a lot of the young people who've been involved with them that speak fluent English. And my guess is that they would have somebody at the market that could, talk or translate. But it may, and I also know that there are some other refugee groups in Durham that are very active too, other than the Burmese. So we've had discussions at different times about making us our refugee farm more than just the Burmese, but we don't think we're ready for that yet.
We had Rod, do you want to ask your question about volunteerism?
Yes, Dr. Brown, I was wondering if there's a chat going on here, and we're thinking, is there a possibility for volunteer engagement by Rotarians in the area? Are there jobs that Rotarians could come out and do, or other ways to help with the farm?
There are lots of opportunities, and it would be a matter of a conversation between us or me and the person of what their skills are and what they want to do. We're looking for volunteers every day. The high tunnel that's been built, I don't know if you remember back there was a picture that showed three faces of three guys. and we call that the 3 old men. And we're building that tunnel, and we had never built it before, so we're taking instructions. And I'm trying to figure out what to do next. So, we want volunteers, but we need to make sure that what they want to do, what they can do, and what we need are it's not quite like the NFA food shuttle farm in Raleigh, where you can just show up with 6 people and they put you out in the garden there weeding or just collecting vegetables. We're not at that point. We would love to explore with whoever, Suzanne or whoever leads the group, what you would like to do. And as I said, the weather's bad now, but when it gets better, I'd love to have you come out as a group and visit the farm.
Yes, and we plan to do that with just COVID and everything going on and all. We decided that it would not be a good time to visit the farm now, but possibly in May or June. If you and Suzanne talk about a visit, I think that would work. And I think it would be great if some things are in bloom. We can kind of see what's going, not bloom, but
Yep.
they're planted and that sort of thing. I think that would be really helpful. But I think we thank you for your presentation. And this is Mary. I serve as the club president this year, and so we're very glad that you were able to come to us today and to give us with the presentation. And let's see. And so, Carol, you had mentioned that you thought this sounds like transitions transplanting traditions, and they offer a weekly option to get boxes of vegetables. Is that something that you all
That's called CSA.
CSA? Yes.
We're not ready for that. We
Okay.
talked about it, but that's something down the road. And they've been in business for 10 years, and they have 5 farmers that are primarily focused on growing and making money. And they have a high demand for their products through a CSA.
Wonderful.
But that comes later.
Okay, that sounds great. And so, Carol, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, so we have a certificate of appreciation, Dr. Brown, to thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll be emailing that to you.
Okay.
Thank you again. Great talk.
Well, I appreciate it. I enjoyed talking to you, and hope to see you at the farm at some point. I'm going to take off now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye.
Brown.
You bet. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So we had planned to do that, but obviously we're going to wait to that to tour that. So that will be sometime in the future. Looking ahead to that. Just a little membership there. Remember to invite guests. So here's our upcoming meetings. Looking ahead, in 2 weeks, Catherine Hoyo from NCSU is going to be talking about her research, looking at the contaminant compound in the groundwater there in the Cape River Basin, Cape Fear River Basin. And then in early February, we've got Cheryl Tung, who's the president of the League of Women Voters. She's going to talk about this redistricting that's we're facing and the impact of gerrymander. So be sure to show up for that and invite some guests to that. And do we have any other announcements or anything else?
I just wanted to thank Suzanne for inviting her friends, Susan and Corny, to join us. And we would love for you to consider how you might be able to get involved with us. And I'll have Suzanne mention that a little bit to you. and we can follow up. But thank you so much for everyone being here, and particularly our guests. I hope you all have a great weekend, and turn it back to Carol.
All right, so we'll close with a four-way test. If
I
Judy-
love this. This is the basis of Rotary.
That's right. Judy, can you read this for us, please? Oop, can't hear you.
Had to unmute.
Yeah.
This is the four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth?
The truth.
Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much. I guess that does it for us this time around.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. Have a great weekend coming up. Stay warm.
Yes,
And
stay
stay-
safe.
Everyone.
Yes, and remember that Monday is Martin Luther King, so do something great.
That's right. Service day, meal packing. Go meal pack.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Great
for
fun.
allowing me to join you.
Absolutely. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Take care.